וכי נפשי אס We are today in page 60, and I promise you today it's a lot of painful but very interesting part of our history. The main discussion is going to be a continuation of our previous sessions, which is carrying on Shabbat. Here we change it for women to men. Certain thing that men can or cannot carry on Shabbat. However, it's not just carrying today, subject of carrying. We're going to learn also some painful history of our people. The Mishnah tells us, "Lo yatzeh haish besandal hamesumar." We are on page 60, in the middle of the page. They said a man may not go out on Shabbat with a spiked sandal. What spiked sandal? What this has to do with anything? Well, let's have some discussion. The Talmud later tells us it was a time of great crisis. And during the time of great crisis, people needs to, if they need to say Shema or need to pray, they need to go to a cave or a secret place to hide themselves from the authority because it was forbidden. The problem is that people who walk in have the issue to walk out, because if they get caught, then everybody else will be killed or will be tortured. And furthermore, soon you see it was sometimes that they're expecting or they thought that the authority come there to harm them, and then people just harm each other. Soon you see how. But one of the thing is that it was a sandal that carries this spike, this type of spiked. It's like mesumar. It's like they carry masmerim, needles inside, but big one, and because it's sometimes is no head, is very dangerous if you take it out or if you wear it indirectly or in the wrong way. So they said here, velo beyachid, bizman she'en raglo maka. So they soon the GEMARA elaborate on that. I just first give you the general statement of the Mishnah. So they said that may not go out with a single sandal when there is no wound of his foot, because again what happened is sometimes he needs to the Gemara tells us later that you need to take it out, and it's the 4 amot, 4 cubit in the public domain, etc. Velo bitfilin. What's the in the sandals we say that he carry it on the foot, that it's have some damage. He needs to carry it. Again, you see the poverty and you see the persecution here. But tefillin, we don't carry in tefillin on Shabbat. And now the thing is, if he carry it, is what happened. Need to take it off. And the issue is carry it 4 amot in Reshut Rabim, 4 cubit in the public domain. Velo bekamea, and not in amulet. So if you remember, we discussed it previously, amulet, there is a certain category. One view of amulet is someone did it. You carry this amulet for protection, for example, for healing, for, again, the big question is that mean that made by an expert that really help someone to heal? So the Gemara brought the definition, if there are 3 people that claim that that's helpful for them, or 3 situations, we're considering that amulet made by an expert. But in general, velo bekamea bezman sheno mina mumche. If it's an amulet that made by someone who's not an expert, therefore it's considering a burden and cannot carry it on Shabbat. Velo beshirion, velo bakazda, velo bamagafayim. Again, you see it's a time of war, so people carry a shirion. It's like if you go to Orlando, you see there that they have a pretending Hollywood war. So they show how they made it. You're wearing a special helmet, right? And they carry this type of ancient army garments. So that's called shirion, kazda, magafayim. Magafayim again is like a big shoes that they carry. Ve'im yatsa, but if he went out in the public domain of any of this, אינו חייב חטאת. He doesn't need to bring a sin offering because it's only rabbinic and it's not considering a Messiah burden. So therefore, he doesn't need to bring a sin offering for that cause. Now, Rashi said that that's apply only to the secular week, but not for the time of war. Marshal in Siman Lamed Zayin 37 said that it's for everyone. Anyway, now we go to the specific. Gemara. Sandal hamesumar mai tama. So the Gemara said that what's the reason that the sage prohibited go out with a spike sandal on Shabbat? So again, we said it was a hidden place that they need to say Shema in prayer, and the fear is that come out, they see him. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel said the reason that they forbids it, shilfei hagzera hayu, that they were those who that the decree of religious persecution, and ve'ayu nechba'im b'me'ara, which means that they are hiding themselves in the cave. Ve'amru hanichnas yikanes vayotze al yetze. So they said, whoever wants to enter can enter, but one who seeks to leave cannot leave. Why? Because one living has no way to determine whether or not the enemy is lying in wait outside of the cave. So therefore, living could reveal the presence of those who are hiding in the cave, and therefore the Rambam said in Pirush Mishnayot that in one hand the people wants to study Torah and pray, but Rambam said that all of that happened specifically on Shabbat, and particularly on Shabbat they used to hide, like the stories of the Moranos, getting close to our days in a sense, because one of the decrees is that you're not to observe Shabbat. You know, soon we get to Hanukkah, and you remember the GEMARA, we said in page 21 in the Rambam, that the Assyrian Greek forbade three things. One of them is the Shabbat, to observe Shabbat. So people need to do it in a hidden way. So, by the way, you see here how the Romans were evil. That it's not only not allow them to practice Judaism in public, but they even chase them to those hidden cave in the desert in order to avoid them from study Torah. And you see how much is connected to soon Hanukkah. You see in the book of Hashmonaim, the time of Antiochus, how bad it was, and why we're celebrating Hanukkah. One of the reasons. Nehepach sandalo shel echad mehem. It happens that the sandal of one of them was reversed, which means he hold it so people can see it. And those they see the footprints appear like the step is leaving the cave. Kesvurim ayu. Listen to a horrible story. So they thought, אחד מהם יצא וראו אויבים, ועכשיו באים עליהם. So they thought that one of them left, and they fear that the enemies saw him, and they are coming upon them to attack. So they get a tremendous panic, and you know when is the panic is just horrible thing, and they said, דחקו זה בזה והרגו זה את זה יותר מאשר הרגו בהם האויבים. That's just awful. The people in the cave, who were hiding in the cave, you know what they did, like it happened in the Holocaust. You know, they push one another and kill one another in greater numbers than their enemies had killed among them. So to commemorate this disaster that resulted from the spike sandal, the sages prohibited going out into a public domain with it. Rabbi Eli ben Elazar Omer, by the way, the Sfat Emet, the great Ger Rebbe, hold that all of those stories are absolute true and all happen. And the reason that we said it, because soon you see three times, it because the conjunction to Hilchot Shabbat. Rabbi Eli ben Elazar Omer, Rabbi Eli, son of Elazar, said, so it wasn't because of that, because במערה יושבים ושמעו קול מעל גבי המערה. It wasn't because there's a reverse in the sandal. They said that they were sitting in a cave, and they heard sound of the spike sandal at the top of the cave. כספורים היו שבאו אליהם אויבים, דחקו זה בזה והרגו זה את זה יותר מאשר הרגו בהם האויבים. So people in a cave, they heard that noise from the top of the cave. They thought that the enemies had come upon them. They pushed one another and killed one another a greater number than the enemies killed among them. Third version of the story. Rami bar Yechezkel Amar, it wasn't in a cave. He said, בבית הכנסת היושבים, they sat in the shul, in the Beit HaMidrash, sitting in a synagogue, ושמעו קול מאחורי בית הכנסת, they heard a voice behind the synagogue, a sound. כסבורים היו שבאו להם אויבים, they thought that the enemy is coming on them, דחקו זה בזה, they push each other, הרגו את זה, יותר מה שבאו, they kill each other more than the enemies kill them. באותה שעה אמרו, אל יצא אדם בסנדל המסומר. So upon this, the sages said that the person may not go out with a spike sandal. So they said, Yaches, so the Gemara asked, if so, bechol namelitza, on a weekday should be also prohibited. Right? So they said, Maaseh kehava b'Shabbat hara. This incident, they said, it's occurred on Shabbat. So therefore they issued the decree prohibited the spike sandal specifically in parallel to circumstances. So they said, B'Yom Tov lishterei. So if that's the case, how about Yom Tov in a festival? So wearing a spike sandal should be permitted. Alamatnan. So why we learn in the Mishna, in the Beitza, that משלחים כלים ביום טוב, בין תפורים בין שאינם תפורים, אבל לא סנדל מסומר ולא מנהל שאינו תפור. So one may send garments as a gift for festival, whether they are sewn or whether they are not sewn, because any object fit of any festival may be sent as a gift. However, one may neither send a spike sandals not an unsewn on a festival. So since using them is prohibited, so apparently one may not wear a spike sandal on a festival. So you have here several things. The Yerushalmi said that we derive from that another thing, that they don't want on Shabbat sadness. And even to commemorate the time of the persecution, they don't want that on Shabbat. Ritva also hold that way. It says that we should not remember a sadness on Shabbat. Yerushalmi in another place said that women, unfortunately, they have this type of fear, and when they hear these sounds, they miscarriage the babies, and because of that, out of fear, they put this decree of wearing this spike sandal. Now we turn around to page 60b. We are on the page 60. I just turned the page to 60b. משלחים כלים ביום טוב, בין תפורים בין שאינם תפורים, אבל לא סנדל המסומר ולא מנעל שאינו תפור ביום טוב. A person can send a clothing or garments to his friend on Yom Tov, regardless if it's ready to wear or if it's not ready to wear. Now, by the way, this part of the Mishnah is not really part of our sugya, of our discussion. It's just, by the way, the Marshal took it out. So they said, אבל לא סנדל המסומר ולא מנעל שאינו תפור ביום טוב. So Masoret Ashar said that in the Mishnah in Kelim it's not the word biyom tov, but the key is that the person should not send a gift to his friend on Yom Tov, because it's called in Hebrew tircha shelo letzorech, imposing when it's not necessary. Only if this gift is a part of which we call simchat Yom Tov, the joy of Yom Tov, that it's okay to do it. It's part of the tircha for the purpose of Yom Tov. The Mishnah Brura in Taf Kuf Tet Zayin explain it much deeper. But again, there is a very fine line between what is really the tzorech Yom Tov and the need for Yom Tov. It's something that it's not. The Magen Avraham in Shin Vav elaborate on that. Anyway, so they said, what we derive from that? That when we speak about sandal, about the sandal, that it's a spike on Yom Tov. So if it was something that we allowed, so you can bring a gift on Yom Tov. So Rashi said that the proof is because at the end of the Mishnah they said, זה הכלל, that's the rules. כל דבר שנאותים בו, anything that they use and derive joy from that, ביום טוב משלחין אותו, you can do it on Yom Tov. Basically, that's the whole question here is, why you're not allowed to use this sandal on Yom Tov, because the story was in Shabbat and not on Yom Tov, not on festival. So they state, by Shabbat my tama, what's the reason that the sages prohibited wearing a spike sandal on Shabbat? The Ika Kinufiya, because they don't do work with that. People gather together to a synagogue and the house of study, and it's something like Me'ena Me'ora, the same some type of resemblance of the story that happened with the spike sandal. So therefore, because it's the same, B'Yom Tov Name Ika Knufiya, because you don't do a work on Yom Tov, so people gather together and in the synagogue and the house of worship. So it's considering Ke'ena Me'ora. It's part of the Gzeira, part of the decree. You look at me, right? Knufiya, it's like in American some type of, sounds like mafia or gathering, but here it's a positive manner. It's Knufiya, it's people gather together. Like Gilbert the other day, we remember we talk in Arabic, Yom HaJum'ah is a Friday, that it's the day that they gather. Anyway, so they said, Ta'anit Tzibur Ika Knufiya. When it's come to a fast day, public fast day, it's also gathering. People get together to do teshuvah, to return to Hashem, and make a special prayer for the fast day. So, Letzah, so we should forbid to have a spiked sandal. So that the GEMARA responds, and they said, Ma'aseh ki hava bekinufa di isura. The story that happened with spiked sandal happened on Shabbat, that it was in gathering day that forbidden to do some type of work. Hacha, here in a public fast day, kinufiya dehetera ava. The time that in gathering was, in a sense, something that they allowed to do work, so it's not part of the rabbinic decree. The GEMARA continued and said, "Va'afilu l'Rabbi Chanin ben Akiva de'amar." This is Tosefta in Tractate Para, that they said it's come to a purification in a river, in the red heifer. Lo asru ela bayarden u'basfina u'k'maaseh shaya, which was a kezait met betachlit asfina. It was a small size of the dead body and the very bottom of the boat, and they specifically put a decree over that incidents, but not in general. So we juxtaposed to us, and he said the same way as the spiked sandal. He said that in a festival is part of that decree is also forbidden. Hanim, the limitation that Rabbi Chanina ben Akiva put for that red heifer applied to the river of the Jordan, Yarden, the Shane Mishar Neharot, because they have a length, rocha ve'omek shoneh, the depth and the size, it's a different, and therefore you put a decree for that, but nothing else. Yom Tov v'Shabbat keladininu, because Yom Tov and Shabbat, it's basically very similar to one, and even for the festivals, is part of the decree that we should not wear a spiked sandal. So here they show you the similarity between Yom Tov and Shabbat. The Talmud said in Tractate Megillah, page 7, Ditnan, and ben Yom Tov leShabbat ela ochel nefesh v'dvash. That's so crucial because Tosfot elaborate, but he says that the key point here is all the type of work that we are forbidden on Shabbat is forbidden on Yom Tov. Don't think that because it's Yom Tov, so things are lenient. It's not true. The only difference is ochel nefesh, something you need for basic foundation of food. Then you allow it. The Torah said clearly in Shmot, in Exodus chapter 12, Ach asher ye'achel lechol nefesh. Whatever you need it for is a very basic food. Hu levado. That's the only one. Ye'achel lachem. Ye'aseh lachem. So basically, the contradiction Tosfot said between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel is how much we extended the ochel nefesh, the very basic foundation of food in Yom Tov. According to Beit Hillel, the type of work that we allow. Mitoch, because you allow to that, you allow to others. Beit Shammai said that ochel nefesh specifically a food for the basic foundation, but nothing else. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel lo shanu. When the Mishna said that you cannot go with spike sandal apply ela lechazek, when you do it for strengthen, because what happened is they have those stripes that connected to their foot, so that's something that we are forbidden. Lechazek, the Rashi said that that's the strengthening. Aval lenoy, but something that make it just for beauty. to make the shoe looks nice, etc. So that's different. Mutar, so you allow. And basically the rule is stam masmerim lechazek, just regular. If you put those masmerim, those senil inside, it's to make it strong. Vechama lenoi. So now we ask a question: how much? You said that it's considering for the beauty, and how much is just for to strengthen. So the Gemara said, Rabbi Yochanan 5 baze ו5 baze. How many nails you need for the beauty? Rabbi Yochanan said 5 for these tendons, 5 for the other one. Rabbi Chanina amar 7 baze ו7 baze. Rabbi Chanina said 7 and 7. So in other words, more than that, it's considering to strengthen, to make it strong, and not for and that's forbidden. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Rav Shemen bar Abba asbera lach. I'm going to explain to you the difference. Ledidi, according to what I said, it's only 5. What do you do? Shtayim mekan u'shtayim mekan. You put in the chitzon, in a part outside of the finger, and outside of the part of the heel, you put 2 and 2, which means you inserted 2 here, and other side, 1 near the toes and 1 near the heels, and 2 inserted there, the inner side, 1 near the toes and 1 near the heel. And he said, ve'achat betarsiyotav, and 1 inserted in its straps. So basically, you put it, the 5th one, berosh haretzua, the head of the and all of that hold the leg. And Rabbi Chanina, according to Rabbi Chanina, 3 מכאן ו3 מכאן ואחת בתרסיותיו. 3 from here and 3 from here, and 1 is straps. So the 7th is the head. Meitivei sandal anote, which means one part, the uneven sandal, which means whereas the soles are not straight. So 3 מכאן. So he said, עושה לו 7, דברי רבי נתן. 1 makes 7 nails on the bottom to strengthen it, and then permitted to go out to use it in Shabbat. And that's the statement of Rabbi Natan. So they said, and those nails are not to strengthen, and it's basically that's the reason why it's not forbidden on Shabbat. But Rabbi Natan allow only up to 7. Rabbi Matir ב-13. Rabbi allowed to go even for the 13. So they said, Bishlama, it's okay according to what Rabbi Chanina, that he allowed to go up to 7 for beauty. We understand up to 7 is beauty. Rabbi Yochanan the man Kamar, to which one of the Tanaim he hold? Because both of them agree that in a sandal that it's noted that it's uneven, you can go even more than 5 in order to make it straight. So he said, so in other words, more than 7, it's clearly for strengthen, to make it chizuk, then it's forbidden. Who the Amar ke Rabbi Norai, the Tanya, Rabbi Norai, Omer Rabbi Norai said, 5 mutar 7 asur. Rabbi Norai hold that 5 allow, 7 not. So you see here that there are 3 different disputations. One is a Rabbi allow up to 13, the second Rabbi Natan allow up to 7, Rabbi Norai allow up to 5, and Rabbi Chanina hold according to Rabbi Natan that it's up to 7, and Rabbi Yochanan hold like Rabbi Norai that it's up to 5. Amar le Eifa. Eifa is the name of the Amora, that it's he came from the city of Pompedita. לרבא בר חנא, אתון תלמידי רבי יוחנן עבדו כרבי יוחנן, אנחנו נעבד כרבי יוחנן. We are student of Rabbi Chanina, we go by him. You are student of Rabbi Yochanan, you go by him. In other words, everyone go by the way that he's Rabbi. Rabbi Yochanan was the head of the yeshiva in Eretz Israel, and Ifai was from Pompedita, Bavel. So he hold, each one go by his teacher. One is over there and one is here. So we go by the one who and the rules follow the way that their teachers bring. Be'amina Rav Huna meravashi 5 mahu. So Rav Huna meravashi asked a question. What about 5? Amar le afilu 7 mutar. Even 7 you allow, if it's for beauty. 9 mai. How about 9? Amar le afilu 8 asur. Because it's so now it's a statement of make it chizuk, make it strong. In other words, Rav Ashi hold the same as Rabbi Chanina, the way that Eifa hold. Be'amine ha'uratz ana me Rabbi Ami. One shoemaker asked dilemma from Rabbi Ami, and he said, "Faromi b'fnim mau." If one sewed the sole and attach it to a sandal from within it. What is the halacha? May he go out into public domain after inserting nails into it? So Rabbi Ami said, Amar le mutar, v'lo yadana ma itama. He said, you allow, but I don't know the reason. Amar lo Rav Ashi, v'lo yada ma itama. How come you don't know what's so clear? Because he put it inside, he saw it within it, and it's no longer a sandal. Havele minal, so it's considering a shoe, and therefore, besandal gazru berabanan, beminal lo gazru rabanan. In the sandals, the sages put a decree, but in the shoe they don't put a decree. Ba min Rabbiya barazavda mirabiyami baravina asao kemin klabus. If we make it a shape like tongues, it's called klabus. So it's like a sikah shel shadchan, that it's a, you have two okatzin in a sandal. What's the din? Amar le mutar, he said, you're allowed to go ahead and use it in Shabbat. Amar le mutar. So Rabbi Abba Ravina said you're allowed to do it on Shabbat. So they asked, Amar Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina kasor kemin klabus ma'u. So Rabbi Yossi son of Chanina said, if you shape it like the tongues, what it's like, you have a keres mekufaf, you like a big belly, that they have two tops. So basically that's the way the Meiri understand. So he said you allow, it's permitted. אמר רב ששת חיפהו כולו במסמרות כדי שלא תהיה קרקע אוכלתו מותר. He said if he covers the entire sole in nails so that the contact with the ground will not wear it away, it's permitted to go out that sandal on Shabbat, since it's no longer the spiked sandal which they put the decree. Now, it's very important to understand what the Meiri tells us, that it's not the same as that original decree. Original decree was specifically to that incident, and anything in that sense, it's different. So that's not covered in that original decree. Let's conclude this. סוגיה תניא כבתי דרב ששת לא יצא האיש בסנדל המסומר ולא יטייל מבית לבית ואפילו לא מיטה למיטה, אבל מתירים אותו לחסות בו את הכלי ולסמוך בו קרי המיטה. ורבי אלעזר ברבי שמעון אוסר. So basically he hold, Rav Sheshet hold, that the man may go out with a spike sandal and may not walk within even a house to house or bed to bed. So the whole idea is that the decree was issued again because of those original crises. We said that you're allowed to use it to cover a excuse me, you can cover a vessel with it. So it is a taught in the Tosefta in accordance of the opinion of Rav Yosef, of Rav Sheshet. A man can go out with a spike sandal and may not walk with even from house to house or from bed to bed within the house. However, since the decree was issued with regard to circumstances identical to a specific incident, which was the unbelievable, awful incidents that we described earlier, it only applied to wearing the sandal. So therefore we said that one may carry, one may carry the sandal to cover a vessel with it or to support the legs of the bed with it. And Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon oser, and Rabbi Shimon forbids using it to other purposes as well. Nashru rov masmerotav, if most of its nails fell out and 4 or 5 remain, it is permitted to go out with it. And Rabbi Yehuda Nasi permits going in. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he said, asau kemin klavus או kemin tas או kemin יתד או שחיפה וכולו במסמרות כדי שקרקע אוכלתו מותר. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi permits going out into public domain with a sandal, even if up to 7 nails remain on it. But if he covers it with a leather from beneath the wood frame of the sandal and inserted nails into the above, it's permitted. If you made the nail like a tongue, or make it flat like a platter, or sharpen it like a peg, or cover it entirely with the nails so the contact with the ground will not wear it away, it's permitted to not to go. It's permitted to go out with it. So now the problem is what we see so far is, and that's just a side note. The Rashash said the difference between Rabbi Yossi and Rav Sheshet is that Rabbi Yossi was a Tana, and Rav Sheshet was Amora. So that's the reason why in Rav Sheshet we need to express much more clarity. Rav Sheshet is a late Talmudic scholar. So now the question is, when you analyze this Tosefta, that it cites the support of the Rav Sheshet, so they ask a question, Haguf Akashya. This Tosefta itself, it's difficult. Why? Because it looks like it's self-contradictory to what they said earlier. Why? אמרת נשרו רוב מסמרותיו אף על גב נשתיירו בטובה והדרתני 4 או 5 עם תפילו. The beginning you said that if you're allowed to if most of its nails fell out, it's permitted. And halacha, that even though many nails remain in the sole, so it's permitted. And however, subsequently it was taught in the Tosefta that with 4 or 5 nails, yes, going out is permitted. More nails is not permitted. So how come you said one that it looks like contradicted to the other? In other words, Fatima said that it's like 2 different categories. We use the language as like 2 standards, 2 different categories to 2 different things. The Sfadim remain with the question with all of that. But anyway, the Gemara responded and said, Amar Rav Sheshet lo kashya kan shenig memu, the head is cut, kan shene'ekru. It said it's not difficult. Why? Because here when it's permitted to go out wearing the sandal, if the majority of the nails fell out, it's referring to a case where they were broken, which means the head of the nails were broken off, while most of the nails remain embedded in the sole. In the other case here, it was permitted only if 4 or 5 nails remain. It's referring to a case where they're totally removed and only the nails that remain in the shoe are visible. So now you see the 2 different categories. Now, for those who walk in, I just want to fit you in to understand, we're getting close to Hanukkah. And you know, one of the things that the Rambam tells us in the Talmud that we studied earlier in the Shabbat 21 tells us that the miracle of Hanukkah is that the Assyrian Greek put decrees, 3 main decrees: the circumcision, the institution of the new month, but also the decree of Shabbat. And one of the background was the idea that it was forbidden to observe Shabbat, etc. So people who wants to do that, they need to run to a cave, to secret places, and they're petrified for something that may happen to them. And its description is 3 different versions of what exactly happened. But regardless to the exact story, it's appear what happened is that they are sitting in a cave and someone either come in, either the enemy or one of the people, or they fear that someone come in, and the people just kill each other inside the cave. And it was a tremendous agony, and the rabbis put a decree not to use this type of sandals that can kill each other. But again, what we derive so far is specific for that sandal. What we going further with conclusion when we talk about numbers and the sandals and how many nails, it's derived from that great persecution and the great fear that people have while they are in a cave. And it's amazing, it's a side note how the history repeats itself. I just came back from Israel. While those of you who watch my previous sessions, we have one of them while I was in a shelter running away from missiles that came from Gaza, and people in the whole south of Israel were like in a shelter, and you back to old business. So it's kind of feeling that the history repeats itself. Back to our subject, we said here, let's just conclude this page. 4 or 5 mutar. So we said, the Gemara continuing details analyzing the Tosefta, it was taught that if most of the nails in the sandal came out and only 4 or 5 nails remained, so it's permitted to go out wearing it. So now we ask a question, before you said that 5 is okay, now you create a problem for using 4. No, he said you should understand that we are differentiate between a large and small sandal. So over there we speak about small one, it's 4, and the big one is 5. And Rabbi allow to use up to 7 nails, he permits. So Vatanya, Rabbi Matirat 13, we learn in different brighter that the Rabbi allow even up to 13. And so again, for those who are not familiar, we have 2 different categories. One it's called lechazek, to strengthen the sandal. One it's called the noi, to make it beauty. we differentiate. As long as it's made for beauty, it's fine. The minute it's strengthened and it's part of work, it's a problem. But again, for those who just came in, I suggested that you go back whenever it's put on YouTube, you just go back in the class and just watch the previous part. So they ask here a question, how come he said in the other place at 13? So he said, Note Shani. Here is different, because with an uneven sole, it's different because in the case of sandal that it's an even sole, even the other Tanaim, they're not permitted, because again, it's different. The uneven sole, it's different. Because it's not to strengthen, it's not lechazek, it's just for other purposes like noi, like beauty. Hashta de atit lehachi. So now that you arrive to new explanations, Rabbi Yochanan amelo kasha. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's also not going to be a problem. Note shani, because he said up to 5, so he can go up to 7 in that sense. The way that Rabbi Natan said, and that's what Rashi hold. Amar Rav Matna ve'amri la Amar Rav Dachvui b'Rav Natan Amar Rav Matna en lachak Rabbi Lazar v'Shimon. He hold that the halacha is not going by Rabbi Lazar v'Rabbi Shimon. So they said pshita, it's obvious. Yachid v'Rabim lachak Rabim. It's a very important rule we mentioned many times. When you have a disputation in the Talmud, when you have one individual and you have the majority, you go always by the majority. You know, the Jews invented democracy. So by going the majority, so therefore it's not even a question. So they said, we maybe thought that in this case it's different, that we may go by one individual because it sounds like more reasonable. And therefore the halacha should be ruling according to his opinion. So, but they said, no, he said, Kamash Melan, Rav Matna wants to teach us that that it's not the halacha. You know, in many places in the Shas, you see that the GEMARA go by the individual, and but here was the different. Amar Abchia, ilav dekauli bavlai shari yesui sharena betuva. He says, if it's not the fact that people call me Babylonian who permits prohibitions, was a guy that allow a lot of things that others not. Abchia, he was born in Babylon and he came to Israel, Sharena Batuva. I allow all of that. I allow even one sandals that have many more. So they said Vechama. So how many? So they said Bepumpedita Amrina 24, Besura Amrina 22. Pumpedita is 2 different places that they have a center of studies. In Babylon they have basically 3 big centers of studies. One is called Pumpedita, one is called Surah, and one is called Nahada. So they said here, in Pumpedita is 24, and the Surah is 22. Amar Nachman bar Yitzchak v'simanach. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak give you some type of idea to make it clear, and he said, Ad de'ata mi Pumpedita v'Surah chasar tarti. He said, until someone come from Pumpedita to Surah, he lost 2 nails from his shoe. What does that mean? Since the route that Rabbi Chia took from Pumpedita to Eretz Yisrael, he passed through the Surah. So one should say, due to the rigorous of the journey, 2 nails fell off the sandals for Rabbi Chia between Pumpedita and Surah. So it's not the 2 nails, it's the idea that for us to remember the rules, so it's you hold that in the 2 different cities, 124, 122. Now I'd like to share with you some halachot. We are basically done with page 60, but several halachot in regard to this page. So first halacha we learn at the early part of the shiur, which again it's something that we should all understand, that some of the halachot connected to the historical context. So because of those tremendous crises that we described at length beginning of the shiur, we have the idea of the spike sandal, which is, and this is the Rambam Hilchot Shabbat, chapter 19. He said, one may not go out on the Shabbat wearing the spike sandal. So again, we're speaking about specific circumstance with a specific sandal, specific time, and again, go back to that part of the session. Is a single sandal. One may only go out with wearing a single sandal on Shul on Shabbat if he is wounded on the other foot. So again, we talk about circumstances with the wounded foot, etc. You have to go to that very serious crisis said of the session that we discussed Jewish history, especially in conjunction to that time. We talk also about Efer Chatat, transporting the ashes of the red heifer in a boat. So again, this is only the time of the temple they used the red heifer for purification. So they said that cannot be transferred on any river. Again, that's the way that Rabbi Akiva described. We also learn a few things in a decree that applies specifically to that situation. לא יצא האיש בסנדל המסומר. One may not go out to Shabbat wearing a spike sandal when the nails are designed to strengthen the sandal. The Maggid Mishnah said that if the nails are decorative, is permitted. As we said today, we differentiate between decoration and something for strength, and it's two different rules. And we said that one who has a wound on the one of the foot may go out with a single sandal on the healthy foot. So that's again, you have to go all over the session in order to understand the rules for that. But beside of learning the halachot today, we also learn the context of Jewish history and the effect that they have since the earlier time to this very day.
Hashem